Tell me about the pros and cons of using manual versus AI, and maybe the use cases you see where that's happening. And also sellers right now, maybe they're like, I'm not sure if I want to use AI or should I do it manually? Maybe some people like there's really customized options. Like, what are your thoughts? What are you seeing, and what's your advice?
Yeah, so I guess we split it into two sort of camps. You have manual repricing. We sort of refer to it as rule-based, where you set up rules. If that, then this statement. If this occurs, then do that. Or then you have automated and algorithmic repricers like what SellerSnap does, which are always trying to provide the best scenario for a specific, the best solution to sort of maximize your profits, like I mentioned before. And there's definitely crossover. People have unique business models, and they want to achieve specific things. And so I don't think it's this or that, but it is I think it is a more of a collaborative approach between the two strategies. We are constantly trying to improve our algorithm, but if you have a specific situation, maybe if, there's a low inventory level fee, our historical days of supply is too low, then you might want to behave in a specific manner that doesn't match what our default value or default solution or decision making would suggest. Maybe you know slightly more about the seasonality of a good that maybe our algorithm isn't aware of in this specific situation. So it's, January 20th and you sell Christmas trees. You want to get rid of your inventory by the end of the month, by the end of the 26th, by that day, no one's buying a Christmas tree for the next 8 months. So our system's trying to win you the highest profitability. That's what we're designed to do. But as a business person, you also want to come in and understand, this good isn't going to have any value in 7 days at the end of Christmas. I better make it more aggressive. And that's when you get this opportunity to add some of that customization into the tool and say, in these conditions, I want you to be more aggressive. In these conditions, I want you to be less aggressive. If a specific seller is involved, or it's a time of day, or if Amazon is competing, be more subdued. Those are the sort of customizations. So we like to suggest that sellers use rules to augment the repricer and the algorithm with their industry knowledge and what makes, you and sellers a competent business person with the knowledge that you've obtained through selling and augment our tool with that expertise.
Interesting. No, I like it. And certainly for us, we see that in our use case, we use the SellerSnap AI repricing, and then there are certain situations where, if this happens, it might be like this one seller, I hate them. Like I want to do this on that seller. And that's been really, really useful where we're combining the manual and the automation or the AI together. You mentioned earlier on about there's some very interesting things coming out with the SP API connection going into the future. I'm interested to hear, what is it? What might we see coming up into the future? Tell me about that.
Yeah, definitely. So, a lot of people wouldn't understand this or know anything about this because you just haven't been privy to the information. But when Amazon talks about buy box, essentially they're not really talking about, or we talk about national buy box is a better way to start this. What they're really saying is a specific zip code somewhere in the country, you are winning the buy box or you are not winning the buy box. But we know that that's just not how consumerism works. People are laid out all over the country. You're more likely to buy goods from the West Coast in summer for your pool, for pool toys. They've got longer summers. It's likely to happen more of the year. There's going to be more customers, more views occurring on the West Coast of the States, that is. So for a long time, when Amazon would tell us who's winning the buy box, they just gave us a binary yes or no and said, Tom's winning, Tom's not winning. But that's just not kind of the way the world works. And what they're starting to do is become much more granular with the information. So they're sharing summaries of information. It's hard to explain. They said what percentage of the buy box share you are winning based on historical data predicting the future, right? So what do I mean by that? You are winning the buy box. If a tree falls in the forest and no one's around, does anyone hear it? If you're winning the buy box and no one goes onto the page to look at it, are you actually winning the buy box, right? So what they're sort of saying is based on historical data, we're predicting that if nothing else changes in this moment in time, no prices, no inventory levels, etc., if nothing else changes, we predict that you are winning this much buy box as a percentage moving forward over the next few years. Make sense? So they're saying you're going to win 50%. And then they're predicting based on where they know the customers are located, that you're winning 50% in California of views, which is, that's all, most of the country is buying this specific product, or you're winning 50%. If there is 100 views on that page a day, then they're predicting if nothing else changes over that day, you will win 50% of those, 50 of those views, 50% of them. It's really complex stuff. And there is a lot of opportunity to be targeted in terms of location, of opportunity cost. You can go from winning 80% of the buy box to 100% of the buy box. But what is the opportunity cost in terms of price that you will have to give away in order to obtain that? Is it worthwhile? So those are the questions that we're asking ourselves based on the new data that we're receiving. And this is why I know that, this current state of repricing is just going to go through the roof in the next year, because there's so much more advanced opportunity out there to be more specific in decision making. Interesting.
Like, that's, if anyone's watching, it's like I love the point where you say, like, if a tree falls and no one's there to watch it, did it really fall? Which is really like, if you won the buy box between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. but no one looked at the product, like, yeah, like you were the buy box winner, but no one was actually looking at the product during that period of time. So you won it, but no one cared about that. And that's interesting, because it's about, actually, I want to be on the buy box when people are looking, because obviously if they're not looking, they're not going to be buying. And obviously I want to win that click when they click buy now.
Correct.
How's that going to affect us as sellers? Like, what's the impact for us?
So probably in a bunch of different ways. So firstly, you will definitely gain better insight into what winning the buy box means. You'll understand better where the percentages that you're provided as terms of buy box share will be more accurate, and you'll get more control over the repricing strategy. Location and strategy, and like I said, that opportunity cost. Do I want to be more aggressive, and what does being more aggressive mean? And then working with solutions like us. To make decisions on if it's fair to share the buy box, or you want to win 100% of the buy box, and what's the opportunity of doing so. If I told you that you could win an extra 2%, but you had to lower price by $4 on a good, would it be worthwhile? If I said you could win 50% and lower your price by $4, that might make more sense. So there's opportunity costs in decisions. We didn't understand this stuff for a long time because we didn't have the data, and now we have the data, which means we can make it ingestible, easily accessible and useful, and then give it to sellers to input their desires, and then end up in solutions where we're better at predicting the outcomes that you want based on the data that we know. So I think that's the major opportunity. And it also is just going to require a real change in how we think about these types of things. So we talk about buy box share as a binary percentage, sort of, you either getting this amount or you're not, you're winning or you're losing. And we calculate how much time you're winning and how much time you're losing, but it's not. We need to start thinking about it more like advertising. It's views, right? Like we said, where are the views coming from and when are the views coming? So the way Amazon talks about buy box share now is in terms of glance views. That's what they call it. They're predicting how much glance views came from the last 7 days historically. And then they're telling you, like I said, assuming nothing else changes, how many glance views are you likely to receive over the next 24 hours? Their views. You're winning 25% of the predicted glance views moving forward. So the calculations for discerning buy box share are going to become more challenging. Re-injecting that into the repricing decisions so that you make the right decisions at the right times is going to become more challenging. But with that will be more opportunity to be specific about the sort of things you want, to a point where we're less focused on making really rigid rules and more in controlling the opportunity costs and being smarter with our decision making.